The revolving door between the public and private sector has allowed 35 lobbyists in the past 4 administrations to complete stints at the U.S. Treasury Department and then return to their lobbying job with higher status and pay, according to the New York Times. By effectively planting their own people within the halls of government, the largest accounting firms in the U.S. have ensured that Washington policies perpetually favor their wealthy corporate clientele.
According to the Times, quote, from their government posts, many of the industry veterans approved loopholes long exploited by their former firms, gave tax breaks to former clients, and rolled back efforts to rein in tax shelters with enormous impact.
Right. Well, the IRS should be suing, and is, they should be doing more of it. Should be suing, should be in conflict with these big accounting firms, not having the big accounting firms send executives in to write the laws.
This is about the least surprising thing in Washington. But it does raise the question. I mean, so various administrations have some forms of different ethics pledges that they have senior officials sign about what they're able to do once they leave office. We had one in the Trump administration, and it barred people from going into lobbying capacities afterward. But the classic D.C. way to tiptoe around that is you consult, you don't lobby. And I'm guessing that's what applies to many of these cases. But this has been something that even when we were working on...
why lobby when you can just be hired?
Well, correct.
Write
direct
the actual
in-house.
Rule.
Yes, that's a great point. But I remember, when we were working on the tax reform bill in the Trump administration, we were surprised that some of our biggest opponents of it were some of the major firms, I'm not going to name names, but that help make doing your taxes easier. Because in fact, they actually make money off of it being very hard for the average individual to go through and do it themselves. And their whole business model relies on that. So, I mean, the taxes in general is something that is ripe for people to profit off of every which direction.
Right. Yeah. So, and what they do, they file an aggressive tax return with some wealthy person. Then, if they get challenged, the IRS takes them to court. Then they will drag that out as long as they possibly can, trying to make it as difficult as they can for the IRS. And then what they're saying, as that's being dragged out, or if it reaches some type of settlement, they then send their executives into the IRS, into the Treasury Department, to then write rules that codify their aggressive return as legal. And then, so now you've moved the line over here. And then you just repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And you get to a place where hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes aren't being paid.
Well, and I think that the thing that's frustrating to the average American is that major corporations can afford to do this. So they can send people, in to get this know-how at the Treasury and writing tax policy, and then go back in to benefit those companies. But the average citizen doesn't have that. That feels, at times often penalized by bad tax policies that affect them, whether it's through, any variety of things. We don't have that capability to go in-house, get knowledge, and know how to exploit the system in our favor the way these big firms do.
And so the way the public could counter it is by funding the IRS at a higher level and raising salaries. I know people don't want to hear that, but raising salaries for people who work at the IRS so that they make careers out of it, and so that it creates a culture that this is a place that you're going to spend your career working on behalf of the people, and you're going to make sure that lawbreakers out there are not stealing money from the public treasury, because that's what tax evasion is. And once you've created that culture, then you're not going to see this kind of revolving door anymore, and people won't need it as much because now they're making a more competitive salary.
I would like to agree with that, but the problem is, I've seen it from the inside, and I've never seen it work well. That if we start, paying our civil servants more, they're going to be more effective at doing their jobs. Unfortunately,
the CFPB has market rate salaries, and even despite the Trump administration's effort to completely kind of turn it over to the industry, your old boss was sent over there with that assignment. It still has maintained a culture of oppositional relationship to the industries that it's supposed to regulate.
I think the issue with tax, with what we're talking about in this New York Times reporting, is it actually oftentimes is within the lines of legality of our tax code. So I think the issue is, we're not talking about people violating.
But who writes those laws?
Well, correct. So I think that's less an enforcement issue, which would be
rules. They write the rules. They're not law. Like the laws are vague. And then the actual accounting firms themselves are sending people in to write the rules to execute that law.
That's fair, but I think that it's less the enforcement side, the IRS, that needs the greater amount of support. I think that we have to talk about, within our tax code, what we can do to have a more equitable system if this is, in fact, the way that major institutions are benefiting from it.
We can try to do that, and we should, but as long as the actual rules themselves are then being written by the accounting firms, they're gonna shade them while nobody's looking in ways that benefit their clients.
Yeah, I just wish the average American had this sort of system to help them get the most out of their taxes, but that's just not the case.
Tax accountants for all. Anyway, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.